manhood.neat podcast. We're about to miss 2 weeks on the dot, but I think we're going to get it in.
Yeah, it got close there, didn't it?
Yeah, I got a little close, but that's life. We're just doing life. So,
golly.
but,
I hate everything about it. He's been saying it to me since I don't know, 3 o'clock today.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do this.
That's right. But anyways, other than today and the extravaganza that you've had going on with that, what's been going on, dude?
Man, not much. Just I've just been fighting everything in my body to say "do in life." I'm not gonna say it, no, but just kicking along, man. We're in the schools out here, so 2 of my 3 daughters are gone. One is gone with a friend to Savannah on a mission trip or on a birthday trip. And then my middle is in Florida on a mission trip. So we've been praying for her and just kind of, it's weird. Summer's going to be real short here where we're at because school starts at the end of July.
What?
Yeah, end of July. So
ridiculous.
It is. And it has to do with the way it was explained to me is it has to do with the leap year. And so apparently when we come back around to the leap year, it'll push it back into August. But right now it's July, baby. So my girls are like, we've only got a month of summer. And I'm like, well, it's June 1st. So technically you have 2 months. And they're like, oh no, well, we only got a month. I'm like, but there's 2 months. So we're having this kind of conversation. So
yeah, well, see, we're good until September. So
that's great.
Homeschooling, baby.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't have all this government food that we got to fit in. All we got is education. So no indoctrination. So
that's right. But no, we're good, man. Busy. It's gonna be a busy time for us. We've got some weddings. I'm in a wedding this weekend down in South Georgia. So excited to do that and be with that young couple. And then in 2 weeks, my niece is getting married. So I'm not in that wedding. My daughters are. So I get to be the funkle.
In 2 weeks, you can't go to that because we have a podcast that weekend. So you're going to have to skip that one.
Wedding's on Saturday. Podcast on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So,
you're not. All right. You'll be home.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, we're good. Yeah, we're good. So yeah, I get to enjoy my role as the funkle and just be there for a good time. So
actually, that's Father's Day. Our next podcast on is Father's Day.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, what better way?
Yeah, what better way to celebrate, right?
Just send the family off, and me and you'll just hang out, and we can play Claire Obscure.
Oh, dude, I got a little news for you.
You said you got news?
Yeah. Sorry, you lagged out for a second. Yeah. I just completed it.
Okay. Are you in the epilogue?
No. I'm at credits.
Oh, yeah. I beat it today, too.
Did you?
Beat it this morning. Yes.
Did you? Which ending?
Who did I pick?
Yeah.
I picked Verso. I fought as Verso.
Okay. Because there's two different endings. So reload in and play as male. Yeah.
Well, I will say just an absolutely fantastic game. I had another kind of emotional moment. And I don't know why it struck me, but the kid playing the piano when you walk into Lumiere, and you're in the concert hall and you realize that that's Verso.
Yep.
Man, I just stood there and it's giving me chills talking about it, but I just stood there and just kind of soaked it in. And I got kind of emotional. And then right there at the end where you have to pick between Verso and Mael and you understand kind of the gravity of it. Crazy game, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean, I'm going to apologize to the listeners. This is a major, but yeah. It was, but yeah, the Verso ending probably is more of a true ending, but the Mael ending hit me harder. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I've got checkpoints. So
yeah. Okay. So go in and play and all you got to do is the final part, as her, but it's, yeah. Then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But yeah. And then we'll move on before we jump into this. One last thing, I guess, is definitely need to jump into some Splitgate. I've been enjoying it. It's
Okay.
it's nice to not be Call of Duty fast. It's more like
Okay.
Halo speed, but the gameplay's good. I don't really like the split ball. They had this thing called a split ball, which is kind of like capture the flag type thing. That mode's kind of but the other two modes I've just played is just standard deathmatch and then like hold your zone type thing, whatever it's called.
I got you.
But yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. I don't like die instantly every time, so that's kind of a good bonus. But no, other than that, dude, like just
y'all are good on your end.
Yeah,
right. Baseball's kicking up. Right?
Baseball's done. Yeah. So that was actually.
I guess it is done.
Yeah. They All Stars started up. So the way they do All Stars here is the age group. Because we had 4 teams in Canaan's age group in the town, and the head coach of the team who has the best record gets to be the All Star head coach, who chooses the teams.
I got you.
He took his entire team and one other kid.
Oh man!
There are 2 kids who made All Stars, both of who happen to be related to the head coach, who never had a hit this season.
God, man, that's tough.
Yeah, Kanan was pretty upset. His coach is upset. A lot of parents. There's two kids who are actually really good, should be on All Stars, who are on that team, and they backed out because they're like, we're just gonna go get destroyed. Like, I'm not. This is dumb. I'm out. So they're like, 2 of their best kids just backed out because. So, anyways, yeah. So I feel bad for Cam, but he's up good spirits about it. He actually ended up with the best batting average on the team this year, which is great because last year he was not. And so he definitely he put in a lot of work in his offense, and it came about. So he actually got they didn't give out game balls every game this season. But they gave out. There's actually only 2 games where they gave out game balls, and he got the game ball in the last one because we were down in our last inning, and there was 2 kids that got walked ahead of him, and then he hit a double, brought them both home with 2 outs, started a rally, and we came back and walk off one. So he got
that.
Yeah. But no, other than that, we were down in Georgia last weekend. Saw my folks and stuff. Family was good. And then got a camping trip. Well, my younger brother and his family are coming up here in into June, and my nephew, my brother, and Kane and we're going to disappear out in the woods, do a little 10-mile it's 5 mile in, and then it's a loop. It's a 10-mile loop, but 5 miles camp, 5 miles out. Looking forward to that. But yeah, other than that, stuff's just going. It's been wet. This coming week's our first dry week in like 4 months.
Today's the start of hurricane season, so good luck with that.
Yeah. So we got 1 week, so we're getting some stuff done. Yesterday I went out riding yesterday morning because I knew it was too wet to mow, and I hadn't been out on the dual sport in a while, and I was like, I'll just go ride some roads, dude. This rain has not been good to some of these mountain roads, like washed out. Like, it was fun, but like I was actually looking at one of the places we want to hike from. The trail's okay. I walked a little bit of it, but the road into it, like, the car ain't making it. And so, and my plan was to get dropped off and have like my vehicle sitting there, but I'm like, I can't get anything down there other than my truck can make it down, but that doesn't do me any good to get picked up and have to to try to get back to the other end. So, but yeah, so that's, everything else is going good though. It's going good.
Well, good.
So, all right. Well, before we jump into this bottle, if you'd like to support this podcast, obviously we've said this 1,000 times. Best way to do that is just to tell a buddy, show them to it. Actually had a listener I was down in Georgia here this last week and met a listener. He's actually the pastor of First Baptist Vienna. I don't know if I should put that out there, but he gave me a hearty man-to-man welcome to his church by asking me to close. Kind of put me on the spot. That was cool, But yeah, it was good to meet him. I'm gonna try to meet up with him here when I come back to Georgia again and get to know him a little better. But so yeah, definitely a good time. But yeah, just tell a buddy. You can reach out to us at manhood.neat@gmail.com, manhood.neat@gmail.com. Again, that's with questions, comments, concerns, reviews of anything you've done or that you've tasted, that we've tasted. If you want to throw in your review, we'd love to read that. We might even throw it out on an episode or something like that. We're also on the Instagram and the Twitter at manhood.neat, and we are on YouTube at manhood.neat podcast. It's still just audio, but it's a good place. You can leave comments, that kind of stuff, and we'll see it. But yeah, that's the best way. Again, the best way though is just to say, hey, I listened to this, and if you think you've got a friend that you think might glean something off of it, pass it along. And if you're like, I don't know why I listen to this, it's a waste of my time, I'm not going to tell my buddies. Well, we understand that part too.
Yeah, we get that completely.
Yeah, we totally get that. And in fact, we're surprised you're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tonight we have a sponsored bottle. This bottle was sponsored by Nate and it is Four Roses Single Barrel OESK. What can you tell us about this?
Well, again, shout out your brother Nate. Absolutely love that guy. Super proud of him, and just glad to know him. So anyways, thank you, Nate. This almost didn't happen. He left these bottles in my mailbox. I went out there and got them after church, and there were 2 Ziploc bags. I didn't realize that at first. I just thought it was all in one Ziploc bag. So I grabbed the Ziploc bag because I only thought there was one, and these 4 ounces just fell from my mailbox onto the asphalt. And I was like, well, this is meant to happen because I can't believe it didn't bust.
Hey, if they would have been in a Ziploc bag, you could have strained out the glass. You've been okay.
That's true. That's very true. So yeah, Four Roses, been around for a long time, Kentucky bourbon. So they have, they do things a little different. They're very peculiar about their yeast strains. And so, they use 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeast strains to come up with 10 different unique recipes. And so they mark these with like OESK. What are the rest of them? There's an OBSV, OBSF. I mean, there's a bunch of them. So the one that we have is OESK. So up until a couple years ago, any single barrel that you got or any just kind of standard Four Roses was the OBSV recipe. And then last year, I guess everybody fussed it, enough about it to where last year they released a tasting kit where you could get all 10 recipes in like a little sample, there were 10 in there, whatever. And that went over pretty good. So now you can get the unique mash bills and the unique, recipes. So this one is like you said, it's the OESK. It's 100 proof. So that's 50% alcohol for the Ioanians. Josh Heupel, Georgia lost in baseball today. I can't remember who they were playing, but whatever that team was. Anybody else we want to throw shade at?
Yeah, anybody in Tuscaloosa, obviously, and anybody who's rooting for that prime team.
Yeah. So 100 proof. Yeah, we don't know the age on this, but we think
7 to 9 years is kind of what I've seen, but we don't know where in there.
Yep. That's right. That's exactly what I've seen too. And then the mash bill, 75% corn, 20% rye, 5% malted barley. So there we go.
Well, neither one of us have a cork to pop on this, because even though it was a bottle that was gifted to us, it was gifted at a time when my brother was still here. So we poured out the samples to make sure that we had them for the episode, and then multiple people have partaken in it since, and the bottle is henceforth empty. So
it's gone. But we did agree that we're going to put some in the infinity bottle, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I've got one little bottle that I'm going to be putting into here, and I'll be putting, I guess it technically be half the other bottle into the infinity bottle.
Awesome. All right, cool. I will say off the rip while you pour yours in there, I would for it to be 7 to 9 years old, I would expect it to be a little darker.
Yeah, it's very light. It's very light.
It's very light to be. I mean, let's just land in the middle for the easy math. Like to be 8 years old, I would expect it to be a lot darker than this. So just my initial.
It almost appeared to me like I haven't had just standard Four Roses in a minute.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is lighter in color.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Four Roses person. I've had a couple barrel proof store picks, and those are usually pretty good. They're hard to find. They're expensive. Just kind of standard Four Roses just doesn't wow me. So I just don't drink a lot of Four Roses.
Yeah.
All right. What you got on the nose?
It's very light, and it's very light. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I'm getting like almonds and cherries. Yeah, it's super light, man. Even for 100 proof, based on the nose, I would not think that this was 100 proof.
No,
okay, it's just
I'm getting
thin.
It's thin. I mean, if you really shove my nose down into it, I see where you're going with that cherries, there's some sweetness to it, some fruit.
Yeah,
But it's kind of grainy too. It's like it's jellied toast.
Yeah, it's very like yeasty. I get kind of a yeast note and then just a little mint. Like you said, if I just really stick my nose down in the glass, I get some mint, but
yeah,
that's about it.
I'm getting like red plum jam on toast, man. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, I get some light fruit, not dark fruit on the front. That rye's there.
Yeah, big time.
A little bit of cinnamon and your your nutmeg, your baking spices, but that's just the rye spice, coming out. Yeah, it's light, man. It's light on the palate.
Yeah, it's very floral to me. I mean, I think I kind of get some cherry, caramel, vanilla, like bacon spice. I get almost no oak, which is unique.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me. But I will say nothing stands out above the rest. Like to me, all of those notes are kind of presented well at the same time. So I think that's nice. It's got a pretty long finish.
Yeah, the finish is long. I think the rye spice is the winner there in the finish.
Sure.
I do get a little bit of the oak as it as you let it sit. There's a light oak flavor, but there's not really heat there at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this finish lasts. It's I'm gonna call it long, but it's a medium to long finish, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's still just everything is very nuanced. It's very light.
Yeah. I think that talking about nuance, like for me, I don't think this is, well, it's not complex by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you were new to bourbon or whiskey and you're really like trying to like hammer out what tastes like what, this is going to be very difficult because like you said, it's very nuanced. Nothing, and in my mind, nothing stands out. Like it's not dominant with cherry or dominant with vanilla. And so because they all kind of present themselves at the same time, like across your palate, like you really have to hunt. Like this is, again, it's not complex, but it's just not easy to find those notes. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. So now the question is, what do you score it?
Go ahead. I need another minute.
So I'm at a 53. I mean, it's your average bourbon. It's a little, just 100 proof, and because it does have some stuff to it, it's a little better, but it's not much.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a Mustang GT with a manual and a fresh pair of tires.
Okay. I think I'm gonna be at a 52.
Oh, so we're at 52.5 for an average score on that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Now here comes the hard part. I know I've seen this bottle multiple times, and I kind of know what the price range is on it. But I know also what he paid for it.
Okay. So that means I get to go first.
Yeah. Well,
right. I get to tell you what I would pay because I don't know what it costs.
Okay. So retail, most places I've seen, this is not a value bottle. Okay.
Oh, really?
Right. So most places, because it's a special release, limited bottles, it's anywhere between $80 and $100.
No.
Yeah. So with that being said, what would you say it's worth?
Well, number one, two thoughts. Your brother's a captain. Obviously, captains are doing well.
Well, we're gonna change the story here in a second, but I want.
I may have misspoke.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Nate. I love you. I've had Four Roses barrel proof store picks. They were $100. This is not $100 whiskey.
No.
This is an $80 whiskey. I think I would like to pay $50 So that's what I would expect it to be. I'd like to pay like $40 or $45.
So what is it worth? What is it worth? Like if you, so I guess, taking the fact that it's a limited release, so it's allocated, all that kind of stuff. So if you walked into a store, what's the price point in which you would still buy it?
$50.
$50. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm landing.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you $5 on top of that 55, right? Just because you're not gonna find like, and even of the releases, I've seen more of the the V one, right?
OVSK
or OBSV. I've seen more. I've seen that more places than I've seen this. Okay. Same price point. So I would say 55. So the 52.5 is where we're at for what it's worth. Now the question is, so shout out to Teleco Liquor, because my brother walked in with me, not trying to toot my own horn, but dude gave him 50% off.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yep. And so he got it for like $48.
Nice.
So that makes it a value bottle at that price.
Okay.
So at that price, so this is going to be a weird bottle. It's going to have a value score and a what is it worth score, depending on where you're at, right?
Okay.
So at $48, what kind of value score do you put onto it?
Oh, that's tough. And so
you're gonna have to start that over. So you blacked out. Oh, I made a mess. So at $48, what kind of value score do you put it on?
Yeah, that's tough because I think there are better values out there. Like if I'm gonna pay $48, I think I could buy better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm gonna give this kind of a low value score.
See, I'm at I'll give you mine. I'm at a 50 because to me that's what it's worth. So you're not paying more than it's worth at if you can find it $48, you're not really paying less, right?
Yeah.
So,
then I'm gonna be at 40.
At 40, okay.
Yeah.
So if you can find this at 50% off, it's still only a 45 value score.
Yeah, man. Well, shout out to you and relationships, huh? And also shout out to your brother.
Yep. Yeah, Nate, we appreciate the bottle. Do not take our scoring as a representation of how we feel about you or the thankfulness. That we're just the score is what it is. And
that's right.
And Nate tried it, and he's kind of at the same place we are. I mean, he was underwhelmed.
You beat me to it. I was fixing to ask. That's awesome.
So
good.
All right. Well, that finishes that part up. We'll now move on to the topic du jour. So today my question is: are we practically lazy? Right? Are we lazy people? And where this comes from is there was a study that I was reading on wacmm.org. I should have wrote down what that means, but again, I'm lazy, so I did not. But it was a survey of men who attend evangelical churches. So they just attend. Less than 1% are involved with the church beyond attending services.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all, dude. Like, I think back to our time in ministry, and the majority of the time, through the majority of our kids, the students that came in and out of our ministry, we dealt with the women. We dealt with mamas. Now, some of that was because dad worked out of town or mom didn't work. But so there are a couple exceptions, but for the most part, the dads either were agnostic, they didn't know what they believed. They were just flat out unbelievers and just didn't attend church. And so we dealt with mom. So 100% believe that. Yeah.
So my question is, why are men not engaged? And so I've got some verses here. We're not going to look all these up and read them because there's quite a few here. But we'll list them out. These will be in the show notes that you can check and look them up. But we'll just kind of tell you what the verse is and then kind of what we're looking for. If there's any of these verses, DWAT, that you especially liked and you want to we can read out, we can.
Okay.
But the first one is Hebrews 10:24 through 25. Basically, these verses emphasize the importance of regular fellowship and mutual encouragement. 1 Corinthians 12 through 27, this highlights that every believer, including men, has a vital role in the church. And these roles are all different, but we all have a vital role in the local church. Ephesians 4:11 through 16, these stress that all believers are equipped for ministry to build up the church. 1 Peter 4:10 commands that believers to use their gifts to serve others. This is both in and out of the church. And then Matthew 20:26-28, Jesus teaches that greatness comes through serving others. And Romans 12:10 through 13 encourages various forms of service and support within the church community. Do you got anything you want to add to any of those?
Yeah, I meant notes, just a couple notes. Going back to Hebrews, I think that this verse is calling men to an intentionality with community, and to not be isolated, right? I think it struck me as, being kind of proactive in your encouragement and kind of how you carry yourself, and that we're not just consuming sermons on Sunday, right? So I think that's that's what struck me, the idea that, it's easy to kind of drift away from fellowship when you're feeling irrelevant or uncomfortable. We can just kind of disappear. And, I had to take issue with that, again, for obvious reasons that we'll get into. 1 Corinthians, I think it's easy for men to just kind of put up a face and just say, well, they don't need me here. I think that's a cop-out. I think that every man has a God-ordained function in the church, whether that's leadership or service or encouragement or protection or wisdom or whatever it is, And so I think that when men disengage, in reference to this 1 Corinthians, when men disengage, in my mind, like, that equals a disobedience to what God has called you to do within the body. So Ephesians, I think that we're supposed to be active. We're supposed to be engaged, right? And that we're not meant to be spectators, but we're equipped to serve. And so we should do that, right? I think it's easy for men to just be passive when it comes to leading their family. And it's kind of a cycle, because we say, oh, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that, and well, you don't feel comfortable because you're spiritually mature. And you're spiritually mature because you're passive in your relationship with God. You're not seeking the Lord daily, right? And so it's a cycle that has to be broken. And I think engaged men behave very differently, right? They grow into spiritual fathers and leaders within the church. So, moving on to 1 Peter, it's pretty simple. Every man has a gift, no exceptions. That's what I wrote down.
Yeah.
Laziness with your gift is poor stewardship of of God-given abilities, and then the idea behind this is to focus on other people, not yourself. Let's see, Matthew, Jesus kind of redefines manhood to a degree here and uses the word servanthood. So again, that's not a call to dominate something, but it's also not a call to be passive. It's to be a servant. And that's what leadership within the church looks like. There's a certain degree of sacrifice and self-giving, and so I think really when we talk about laziness, it's unhelpful. And I think I could make an argument that it's also un-Christ-like. And of course, there's a lot to unpack there, but you understand my point. And then finally, Romans, Christian life involves passion and generosity and being intentional with our relationships. Being joyful and being engaged is some people would argue is a spiritual discipline. And so you have to fight apathy. You have to kind of be purpose driven when you're in church and when you're at church, and you have to be present. And that's really what stuck out to me about those verses.
All right. So then we go back to why are men not engaged? And so looking at it, I think that the American culture has and the adoption of American worldview into the church. So a lot of people who are Christians or go to church or both, because you can go to church and not be a Christian, so you're not. But that we still have a tendency to view the church through an American worldview as opposed to viewing America through a biblical worldview. But the way that America's culture has changed, do you think that it's ruining Christian men? And the first thing I got here is because you pay someone else to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that made me think of this is that a lot of churches nowadays are using professional services instead of congregational men to perform maintenance, landscaping, cleaning, etc. Right? These are things that used to be done by men in the church. So nowadays, a lot of that's done. A lot of churches they just pay a landscaping company. They pay a mowing company to come through and mow. They got a janitorial lady that they pay, sexist Aaron, a janitorial company that they pay to come do that, or anything. So these are practical services that men used to do. So do you think that there's an aspect of the fact that we are offloading this kind of thing onto paid services? Has practical laziness led to spiritual laziness?
I see the connection there. I think it's probably not the sole factor. I think it's probably one of several, factors that have impacted, laziness, but so from my personal life, from my example, not my personal life, but when I was on staff at church, we tried the, hey, church men thing, right? They had a group of men who were going to take turns cutting grass and weed eating, and it just got to where it was like, oh, I can't make it. And then next thing you know, like the preacher's out there doing it, or, I think I did it one time. And it just got to where it was just, it became a bigger problem than it was designed to fix. Right. And so the church that I was at the time, we hired a landscaping crew to come and do that. So I see that on the other side, and kind of continue with that. The church that we've been visiting now is massive. And so massive campus, massive footprint. And I can't imagine the church men trying to keep up with that place. I mean,
you got a massive church. You got a lot of men. You got a lot of men.
I don't think so, man. Like,
so you don't have any men. Okay, I got you.
No. Like a lot of men, but just the sheer acreage and all that. So I've seen like a professional company like cutting and taking care, but I will say that since we've been there, we're coming up on visiting at this church for a year. And since we've been there, they've had several deacon work days. So deacons kind of led the charge. There were certain things that needed to be fixed. And so the deacons each took like a little project. And then when you showed up, you were just kind of like the helper mate, right? Like, hey, go get me the wrench kind of thing. And then they also had like a church-wide work day where they went in and everybody showed up, whether you were a deacon or not, and they just did like a spring cleaning. They dusted the real high ceilings and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I've seen it both ways. I can understand like where you're coming from. But I think there's other things at play when it comes to spiritual laziness.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a symptom.
Yeah.
I think it's a symptom. But at the same time, I'm going to push back a little bit in the fact that we have this attitude. So my issue, going back to you said, well, we tried to have men do it, and they would say, hey, sorry, something came up. Okay, is someone sick in the hospital? Is someone in a wreck? Like, you made a commitment, show up and do it. I don't care. Like, I don't care what came up. Like, would you skip work for this thing that showed up, that you're talking about? Or are you saying that this is less important? And this, And to me, it's a mindset issue of, I'm sort of like, if I say, hey, I'm going to do something, like if I would not skip my job that pays me to do this, why would I skip it for other reasons? Why do I skip something else?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, and that can go from small group to church service to showing up to a buddy's house to help him move or whatever. Like, to be just like, oh, I'm sorry, something came up. Okay, would you skip your job for that? Would you take leave? Would you take PTO from your job for this thing? And maybe you would. In that case, it's a legitimate thing. But if you would not, then all you're saying is, well, if it doesn't inconvenience me, I'll show up.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking on that. I mean, I think, it comes back to Matthew 5:37, right? Let your yes be yes, your no be no. Anything beyond that is evil, right? So I understand what you're saying, and I do think that's what it is. I think it becomes, in regards to, self-care and this whole like landscaping thing. Like, I think that's exactly what happened is we had this kind of group of guys that we were gun ho and, hey, everything's going to be awesome. And we're going to whip this, church, lawn front yard into shape. And then it was cool for like 2 months. And then it became a burden and it became a problem. And it just slid down everybody's priority list to where it became an issue, more of an issue. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And so I guess, I mean, you and I have different personalities, right? And so my answer to that would be like, nah, man, you said you're going to do this. So if you don't come do it on Sunday when everybody shows up, it's going to look like crap. That's on you. And we're going to put it up. Jim Davis said he was going to mow the yard this week, backed out. That's why it looks bad.
Yeah.
But I think that carrying this forward then is we take that same mentality into our actual like spiritual assignments that we have or tasks we have to do.
Yeah.
And we say, you know what, I pay my tithe. I show up to church, I pay my tithe. So it's the elders and the pastors that need to go do the ministry. They need to check on the sick. They need to check on the guy that's, hurting, to make sure, the guy sitting next to you in church every Sunday's marriage is going okay. And we just kind of back out because we have this consumer culture that is America, and we're used to, we pay somebody, they do the work, I relax. Like, all I have to do is do my job, go to work, provide for my family, put my money in the plate, I'm good to go. And I think, and so that's why I say when I talk about practical things is I think we have this, because we do live in a very consumer, based society. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to have someone, a lot of people have people that mow their yards for them. They don't even mow their own yard. That's not wrong. I'm not saying it's sinful to do that, but are you becoming lazy in anything you like don't want to do? And so I'm sorry, like there's a lot of times, like we talked about this, from the very get-go of this podcast, ministry friends, like there's people that God's brought into my life that I really don't want to hang out with. And so I'm like, well, I'll pay somebody else to hang out with them and witness, minister to them. And I think a lot of us assume that's the pastor or elders or people on staff. And so I think that we do have this issue of the reason we have lazy men is because that seems uncomfortable. That seems like that's something I don't want to do, but I'll just pay somebody to do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, talking about American culture, I don't think it's American culture. I think it is the age of the internet. John Eldridge talks about this in one of his newer books, but he talks about disciples of the internet and how we turn to the internet for all of our answers and all of our questions, and everything is like instantaneous, because we just hold supercomputers in our hands and we just have a wealth of knowledge just at our fingertips, right? And so, and his point is like you go back to some of the early like church fathers, they had to wait. You had to wait for the Lord to answer, right? You weren't able to just go to Google or ChatGPT or whatever, right? And just immediately have those answers. So I think that's part of it too, is that the culture of like instant, I can have everything instantly. I think that's made us a tad bit lazy. And especially kind of following John Eldridge's thought in that is that like we expect everything is so instant that when it comes to our prayers and our petitions to the Lord, like we expect him to answer like right then. And I'm not saying that he can't. He's the Lord. He's created the universe. He can do what he wants to, right? I mean, we all know he operates outside of our kind of time space continuum, right? But when the Lord wants us to have patience and wants us to seek him in some of these things, and we don't, we just kind of lose interest. And I also think that's one of the things that has caused a lot of laziness and a lot of issues,
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. We're just I want it now, and then, my attention span's 2 seconds and I'm done and moving on. I think something else
it's just so convenient, everything is just so convenient. It's like, why would I have to wait for anything? I don't have to wait for anything else. Why should I have to wait for God?
Yeah.
Why should I have to, go on this journey of struggle with sin or whatever it is that I'm struggling with, right? I mean, why does it take years for me to beat the sin of pride when like I can just go order white duct tape from Amazon and it'll be here tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So the next thing I think is a reason why men are not engaged in the local church is there's just not a lot of time of action, right? And men are very action focused. And so a lot of our sermons and a lot of our books that we read and all this stuff are about, hey, this is what it would look like if we do things, or this is how this should affect you, and go and sit and like meditate on this and see how it like makes you feel, or all this kind of stuff. And like dudes just want marching orders, man. Like that's how we're wired. And so Francis Chan, I've probably brought this up 1,000 times, but it's one of my favorite things. He talks about, God like tells people like, go clean your room, right? This is example. He's like, so you tell your kids, go clean your room. And if you go upstairs and all we do these days is sit and we bring our friends over and we talk about how cool it would be to clean our room and what it would look like and the steps we would take to clean our room. He's like, no, you're still grounded because you didn't clean your room. Like, just go clean your room, And I think that there's an aspect of that in the modern church in America where we don't really give marching orders on a Sunday. Like we show up at the church and it's theoretical. No, I don't want to say theoretical. That's a bad word because it's not theory, because it's truth. But truth is presented. But then there's like, and it might even be application of like, this is how it should change you. But then there's no like, now go do this, go do it, And I think that that's another aspect, is just that we don't have, like, guys are simple. Just say, there bear, go kill bear, bring bear back, eat bear, So
yeah.
But
yeah, I agree, and I think you're talking about Sunday mornings. Like, I think some of that is because, some preaching has gotten so topical. There's not a lot of like expository, starting with a verse and like, let's just hammer out these 4 verses because there's a lot to discern here, right? Yeah, so I think that's part of it too. So speaking of Francis Chan, he's been in some hot water lately. Have you seen the latest quote that he said? It was either earlier this week or last week. He pretty much said that was it Paul, Peter, that if they came back today, and Jesus included, that they all had churches, he would have a bigger church than them because he knew how to talk to people and they didn't. And everybody was like, what? 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 Yeah.
Did he
got in some hot water?
Did he define it? Like, I mean,
he was just talking about, and of course, I'm missing some context, but it was, it was in like an interview setting, I believe. And they said something, and he basically just said that his church would be bigger than Paul's and Peter's and Jesus's because they were, and his point was, they were radical, they were uneducated fishermen. Like, I get where he's coming from, but it was just a weird way to present the answer.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, I could definitely see a lot of modern churches being bigger than if they came back because they're laying out truth regardless of how it makes you feel. And people will be like, well, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to go over here. you know.
Yeah.
Which gives them the next point is like the country club mentality, right? You know,
Man,
and so
nice segue.
yes,
Love that.
yeah. You know, like do a lot of people just go to church to be part of a club? Like, this is where my friends go. We got a good coffee shop here. I mean, look how nice this place is. Look at our building. It's beautiful. We can come here we got movie nights on Thursdays. We've got Wednesday nights.
We sell merch.
Yeah, we sell merch. I mean, like, it's the country club mentality. Yeah. And so a lot of
it's 100%.
And why would you be engaged? Like, why would you go out and like suffer and be engaged with the community and do hard work when I can just sit in this beautiful building with this everything's perfect, and soak up this AC, sipping on this latte, getting told how much Jesus loves me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of that too is it's like it's a who church, like the who's who goes to this church.
Yeah.
This politician's family goes here, or this elected official goes here with his family, and like, I just hate that people have reduced church down to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a chance to commune with Jesus every Sunday. We can walk in, and I don't just mean the church we go to. I mean, as Christians, as the Big C church, we have a chance to be expectant when we walk into that service, to be able to worship God, to worship his goodness, to understand, that we're unworthy, and that, we can't do this without Jesus. And not only does Jesus love us, he's atoned for our sin, but then we get the Holy Spirit. So every day when we go through this, doldrum kind of 9-to-5 thing, and we come across this issue, we can press pause and go, wait a second, God, what's going on there? Like, we can pray for discernment, and God will give it to us, like, there's just so much more than that, but it's just been reduced down to checking boxes, and I think, that's where we'll see the was it Matthew talks about the path is wide and the gate is narrow,
yeah.
I think that's where we're going to see a lot of lukewarm Christians when it comes down to meeting Jesus, and he says, get away from me.
I never knew you. Yeah. And God says,
I never knew you.
Spew out of my mouth. Right.
Yeah. And I kind of in my mind, like, have God going, oh, you've never heard of that? Oh, you've never heard me say that? And then him like flipping to a book in Revelation going, it's weird. I wrote this letter to this church in Ephesus, your second chapter of Revelation. You read that, right? So like, it's just there, man. And it's been proven over time, like, how good God's word is. We just have to read it.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to study it, and you have to read it, and you have to be intentional about it. And it just makes me really sad, and I think us as men, guys who are seeking the Lord, like, I think that's where our call is. Some of us are old enough to be spiritual fathers to other people, and that's where we can look at people in the eyes and go, hey man, how's it with your soul? And we start bands, and we start, these, life groups, or whatever you want to call them. I think that's part of the idea where we have to step up and lead, because I mean, that's what we're called to do, is make disciples, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've got, my next thing is practical steps towards the solution of this. And this is where you and I might get a difference of opinion. That's okay. But I said, one is to stop being
That's not what your note says.
Yeah.
Your note says that it's okay to disagree, but you would be wrong.
That's true. You will be wrong, but you can. But I think we need to stop being lazy physically to train spiritually. And this is not necessarily just working physically, like at the church, at the local church, right?
Right.
But I think that being physically lazy, and so a lot of our jobs anymore are pretty lazy anyways physically. I mean, just sitting, just because of the nature of, I'm not saying you shouldn't, like, if you're a computer programmer, you're wrong. No, I'm just saying that that's not a job that's physically demanding. And so there needs to be some type of physical element, which helps train spiritually. Like, there's got to be a struggle. And, but I do think that when we talk about the local body church, there are some aspects of doing physical service for the local body that will lead to spiritual edification and spiritual training. So to me personally, I think the churches should not outsource maintenance and cleaning, security, whatever things you want to do. And the reason I got multiple reasons for this, and you can disagree on them, after getting talking about them, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong. Right. So one is these things are service opportunities for men. So a lot of men might want to be involved, but they don't feel like there's no place for me to jump in, because maybe they I'm not a Sunday school teacher. I don't like babies. I don't want to work in the nursery and hold a baby. So these are areas that men can serve. And so also too, the second thing is men unite around tasks, right? So fellowship, getting men to fellowship is really hard when it's just, hey, come to get together and let's have a breakfast and talk about our week. Now friends can do that, but it's hard for a lot of guys. It's not really my scene. But when a lot of guys will show up to a service project, and so I think that these service things give men a place to unite and to complete a task, and that leads into fellowship. Small acts of service lead to bigger and bigger acts. That's just how, that's been proven throughout time. We get used to doing small things and we move on to big. So yeah, those are my first three. Then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, I'm indifferent to the outsourcing of church maintenance. Like I said, I've seen it both ways. I think it's just, wherever the church tries, I just want the church to be a good steward.
Do you disagree with any of my three things that they can provide?
I don't think I necessarily disagree. I'm indifferent to the first one. I genuinely don't have an opinion about it. Some churches, I just want the church to be a good steward.
So do you think that that's a good use of financial resources of the church to make sure it looks pretty?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like God's house. Don't you want
No, God's house is inside of me. We are the temple.
So then explain the shape of your body.
I'm the sinful creature, all right? I got things I got to work on. I get that. You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep.
Sorry, buddy. Mine's not much better. We're both fat titans, right?
That's right.
I guess in the end, I'm indifferent. I want the church to be a good steward of what they've been given. I do think it's important for the church to be clean and to look nice, both on the exterior and interior, so I think that's important. And I think,
I agree. And I guess where my pushback is, if there are men in the church who have the physical capability to do that, but they're too lazy to do it, and so you're just going to give them an out, why not hold their feet to the fire? When do we hold men's feet to the fire and say, listen, this has to get done. You said you'd be here. Sorry, you got to be here and do this. That's what men do. And so we're losing another opportunity to teach men, your word is important. If you say you commit to doing this, do it.
Yeah, but we can do that in other, like you said, service opportunities. Somebody's got to.
I put these things. I meant these sub bullets meet that bullet. So these are service opportunities. So yeah,
I just think there's other ways we could hold them to accountable.
Yeah. But when do you stop? So let's say you're doing you got someone in the congregation's house needs to be re-roofed. They can't afford to do it, right?
Right.
And so they're like, hey, listen up. We got the shingles bought, all this kind of stuff. We just don't have it in the budget to pay for this to get roofed, but we can buy the stuff for them. We need 10 men to show up, sign up. 10 guys show up. The day it's supposed to happen, 8 of them call and say, oh man, sorry, something came up, I can't make it. Do you just say crap or do you, what came up?
No, I definitely think on something like that, there's definitely some pushback, hey, you've made a commitment to me. I'm leaning on, I've coordinated all this. I've, talked to Home Depot. I've had everything delivered, but you're the roofer. I can hand you the nails, but I need your expertise. So no, I agree with that. And some of the other things, it could be as simple as, like I said, setting up chairs and helping clean up after, a Sunday potluck or a Wednesday night supper. You told me you were going to sign up to be the chair guy. Why weren't you there? I'm down. I'm definitely okay with holding people accountable there. because I think service is going to, I mean, it can be anything. You know, I mentioned in a podcast several months ago that I went on like a Vida Nueva, like a VN weekend, and we were a part of the cook team. And, you know, we're doing all this cooking, and I'm looking around and I'm like, well, crap, ain't nobody touched a pot or a pan. Somebody's got to wash dishes. So I just felt like the Spirit bled it on me. I'm going to wash dishes. And I wash dishes all weekend, you know? So, like, there's plenty of opportunities to serve. I think it's just getting guys in there and, you know, getting it done, I guess.
Yeah. I guess that's my thing, too. I guess with all this is I'm not going to go to some guy and be like, oh, you didn't sign up for the mowing service. You're not a Christian, right? I got something with that. But if somebody signs up to do it, like, to me, like, this is a character building ministry, right? Like, no, like, you signed, you're going to do this, like, you know, and that there's got to be some pushback, you know, and then there's got to be some challenging, like, men need to be challenged, and you got to rise up to the challenge.
Yeah.
And then, so that, you know, and so when, again, there can be circumstances where it's okay to back out. I'm not saying like, let's, you know, like, you're like, hey man, I know it says don't come, but I just found out that, like, you know, something really dramatic happened. I get it. You know, my wife just called. She's got 4 flat tires. She's on the side of I-75 and she's freaking out. Okay, dude, like, you need to go rescue your wife. Like, do you need me to find another guy to send to help you? Like, you know, like, that's fine. But if you're like, oh, you're not gonna look at him and go, hey, this grass ain't gonna cut itself. Yeah, no. But if a guy calls, but now I will say that if someone's like, hey man, sorry, but I guess something's going on. I'm like, well, what you got going on? Well, you know, Steve's got a really nice boat, and he called and wanted to see if I wanted to go fishing, and I don't ever get to go fishing. Yeah, well, guess what? Today you don't get to go fishing because you told me you'd be here, right? You know, like, and so, but yeah, and so I think that it's just all these things. To me, it's just lazy. Like, if you got a church of 50 men in it, that's it. 50 men. You need one guy, maybe, I don't know how big, you know, and if your church is so big that it takes more than one guy to mow the yard, you probably got a lot more than 50 men in it. That's 1 week a year. One weekend a year, you got to come mow, right?
What if the church has their own, like, maintenance team?
What do you mean, like paid?
Yeah, like their own staff to maintain the campus.
See, I just, even that, we can go down. This is a deep rabbit hole we could go down. Is your church a corporation, or is it a brotherhood? Right.
Okay.
So, like, when you look in Acts, who's paid?
Preacher.
That's it.
Well, yeah.
That's it.
And that's debatable. Growing up, my neighbor was a preacher, and he didn't get paid for it.
Yeah.
He worked full time at the Ford plant in Atlanta, and he told me growing up, like, preaching's my full time job.
And I built Tauruses on the side.
He's like, and I just work part time for Ford. And I'm like, you work 5 days a week? What you mean work 5? You know, so anyway.
Well, and so
it's debatable, but I understand your point.
And if you look at the Bible too, like, Paul's like, yeah, make sure, you know, give to the people spreading the word. But when Paul didn't have enough money, he went and built tents, right? So it works. He didn't say, well, I can't go because I'm not fully funded. No, he made it work. That's a whole other topic. But no, and that's why I think, like, are we building corporations, or are we building the kingdom? And so, I don't know. I struggle with a church being so big that it has, you know, a full paid worship team, a full paid, you know, maintenance staff, bookkeeper, all this stuff. I think it's, especially when they start having multiple campuses. Like, now I really have an issue, because now you're not a church, you're a franchise, right? And so there's a lot of these things that, I can't sit here and definitively say it's wrong to do it, because I haven't searched that far into it or gone to a church that's ever had that, for that point, that side of it either. But I just see that, like, the church is supposed to be self-sufficient. And so, and we're called to, like, give to each other in the church, so that, you know, like, to sound un-American, the church is kind of a socialistic enterprise, but with God as the center, right?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like, we see that, like, the people that didn't have, like, widows and orphans and stuff that, like, within the church were taken care of by the church, and people, like, who had excess would give to help those who didn't have enough, like, the, benevolence. But at the same time, if someone wasn't working because they were lazy, they didn't get benevolence, right? It's relationships would make all that work. And that's, we're just sidetracking. But anyways, I do think that, to me, I think that it is lazy. It's just because we have this country club mentality that I just show up, the pastor speaks to me, I feel better about myself, I'm re-energized. No, the church is a place of service, right? Like, the church is service. And so the church is the people that go there. That, yeah, we have a building we gather in, but it should be all maintained by the people. And now there's some things you can't do. Like, some things have to be done because of the world we live in, have to be done to code. And so you've got to have, an HVAC guy come in and redo the air conditioner. But I'm sorry, putting up paint. Yeah. My kid's 10. Like, he knows that he's painted my house. Like, does it look as perfect as? No, it doesn't. But he's also learning to serve and learning, to do work. And, and I think that we miss all that when what are we teaching our kids? And, like, how are we ever going to get away from this mentality of we just pay someone else to do it if our kids never see us going to the church and doing service?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair when you, look, do your kids, see you praying? Do they catch you reading your Bible? I think that's very easily said. I didn't grow up in, a hand-raising church, so, when worship, but, my oldest daughter has been around people who do worship that way and they respond that way. And so, for her, it's very natural. But for me, if I was to put my hand up, that would be I guarantee Ash would be like, what? She kind of look at me like, what? Because that's just not something I grew up around. So the argument's the same there. What are they catching you doing?
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you raise your hands when you pray or worship or not, I don't think that's a spiritual discipline. Reading your Bible and prayer is, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just using that as an example, though.
Yeah. But no, I think that it's important. Yeah, our kids should see us pray, and our kids should see us read the Bible. We should read the Bible with them and pray with them. But they also need to see us do, other thing, serve. Yeah. And both the church and people outside the church. And then my last point is just, I think there's better use of the church's financial resources than lawn care and building maintenance, as far as outsourcing it. And that's just me. And I again, I understand that I've probably I'm real far on the side of this, and because I've been in churches and been a part of churches where they stopped doing local mission. They're like, oh, we got to shut down our giving to this local mission because we don't have the finances, but they were still paying for lawn care, and they just bought some new TVs to put in the classrooms. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I'm probably a little more sensitive to it than others, but I do think that we need to, it's something that men need a place to be challenged. And I think that we're always looking for ways to improve ourselves to be more Christ-like, right? And we always hear prayer, read the Bible, and fellowship. But we also need to do just practical physical service. To me, that helps. I know my mindset changes the more I'm doing that kind of stuff, and I get away from it just helps me to have a heart more for serving others in other ways too, not just physically. And I'll give a prime example. So I've got a neighbor up the road, and I'm a crappy person just like everybody else moment. So I got a neighbor up the road. She's a widow. Called me up. It's been 3 weeks ago now. 2 weeks ago. To look at her mower. She's got this little rider mower, and it wouldn't start. Well, it's like a 90s Honda riding mower, which I don't know if you know those, but it's a rear engine, and it's got this huge plastic tub over it. So I'm gonna have to pull. I know it's an electrical issue because the battery's good, but I'm not getting any fire to the starter. And so, but in order to look at it, I've got to pull all the controls off, steering wheel, lift this plastic tub off, and then start work. So I got a day of work before I can actually start working on it.
Right.
I don't really have a place to do it. I mean, I got my barn in the mud and the dirt because it's wet in there because we had, but I was like, yeah, I can do it for you. Just, I said, when I get time. And I told her that we were still putting out fertilizer. So that was my excuse. I was like, but right now I don't have any nights. And then I got baseball. Well, baseball's done. That's done. Right. So this week, no rain, no baseball. I really don't want to do this. And so but I told her I would. Well, then I found out, this week's Vacation Bible School. And it's in the nights. And every night they're having an adult class you can go to in a meal. I'm like, oh, sweet. Guess what? I'm going to go. I can't miss Vacation Bible School. I should be sitting if the church doors are open, I should be sitting there listening to the preaching. No, Aaron, you need to do that lady's mower. So, So you need to hold me to it, DY. Like, text me tomorrow night. Okay. Did you ride that lady's mower down to your house? And because I told her I'd do it, and she needs it done. She's a widow, doesn't have anybody to help her. Like, and I mean, even if she wasn't a widow, she's just my neighbor. So, but yeah, like, I've been putting it off because I don't want to do it. And guess what? I've been lazy. You know how I can tell you I've been lazy? Yeah. Because in the same 2 weeks that I've been putting it off, I finished beating Expedition 33. So, yeah,
man. A little conviction, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm 100% going to hold you accountable. Yeah.
So that's my conclusion. I just think that practical physical service can be a tool and is a tool to lead to greater spiritual discipline.
Yeah. I agree. And kind of my closing thoughts, and really kind of to issue a challenge to our listeners is, are you showing up? Are you going to church? Are you being there? Are you sitting in the pew with your family? Are you serving? Are you, doing the offering? Are you, like I said, putting out chairs? Are you handing out bulletins? Like, start somewhere, like, serve somewhere. Don't just sit. I would challenge you to ask God to show you where you are needed in the body. Right? What can I do for this church, this congregation, this band of brothers? What can I do that I'm not currently doing? And then kind of in the same line with that, ask the Lord to show you, like, what spiritual gift have you given me that I'm not using? Which one's collecting dust, right? So that would be my challenge. We should be seeking out, other brothers. If you're an older fellow, and maybe you ask the Lord, like, who can I be a spiritual father to? Who can I be a spiritual parent to? We just can't sit back and just be, passive. We really just we need to be filled with holy love, and it needs to be put into holy service. Passive men do not reflect God. So I would say step up, take your place in the body, figure out where you can work, and then just let God's grace just kind of wash over you and lead you to where he wants you to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, close in prayer, and we'll call it a night.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this time to gather. I just thank you for D. Watton for his friendship. I thank you for the listener. I ask, Lord, that you would just open our eyes to places that we can serve. And may when we do physical acts of service, Lord, would it just lead us further in relationship with you, with our fellow brothers. We just want to honor and glorify you with all things, Lord. Anything we said in air, Lord, may just pass in when you're not the other listener. But again, Lord, we just want to glorify you, and we want to be salt and light in this world. And we give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right.
Amen.
Appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time on the Manhood.neat podcast. Splitgate?
Yeah.
All right. I'll be on in like 15 minutes.
Sounds good. I'll see you then.
All right. Later.